And Shaun, look who's back, man. The football roundtable was just Shaun and I staring at each other last week.
You guys loved it.
Segment we love to look deeply into each other's eyes, but it's nice to see Max has been here all show now. We've got Keely Eure back. We don't know whether we'll have Jordan Addison or Eric Gentry back. So if they have to replace Jordan Addison, where do we think that goes this week?
It's a good question. I mean, Karen Hudson has been getting more reps there. I will say, though, he looked good, Jordan Addison, the week after, I guess that's the bye week, after Utah. And so for what we saw...
They're calling him day-to-day, so I have no information.
For what we saw, it seemed more promising than what we saw on the field. I will say that.
It'd be interesting, too, if Mario Williams becomes like, I know it's not this offense isn't built for a premier receiver, but because Mario is more of a slot guy, like do we notice a difference in play calling at all? Should Jordan Addison be out? Maybe Taj Washington's the guy that elevates.
And Mario Williams played outside last year, too. So I think when we talked to him, that was something he said. But is that a pivot you make for a week, or does that throw off things too much?
I think Coach Simmons said it. Michael Jackson seems like a guy they've got more trust in. Obviously, you scored a touchdown in a huge moment there. That builds confidence as a young player. You have a bye week. I'm sure you try to ball out there. So you just kind of build on that depth, and it's just part of the season where these things are going to happen, and you got to have guys step up and play.
And it's what we thought the season was going to be in July before Jordan made the surprise. I was
thinking about that too.
The surprise transfer. This is what the normal was supposed to be.
And we were excited about it. Yeah. The spring game, the spring game, all the talk was about Mario because we didn't even know about Jordan Addison. If you have to replace Eric Gentry, harder, easier?
Yeah, I think a much harder fill because I think the level of talent at the position isn't as high as in the wide receiver room. So you got to fall back. And I don't know how bad it is, how bad an injury is, but you think, obviously Raylan Goforth's been playing out the year. But I think Tusivi Nomura has been having a great season kind of quietly, just the way the intensity he plays with. Now is there some areas of his game that he can improve? Of course, he's a young player, but I think the intensity he plays with, the hat he can bring it on every tackle has been something special. But you think about the goal line play against Utah. I mean, just a big hit and just a player that looks like he likes football.
What's interesting is, Max, they've had a rotation at inside linebacker for a while now, which I think proves handy in a situation like this. But ultimately, it depends on how healthy Shane Lee is. That's something where he wasn't at his best at Utah. And if you look at the PFF missed tackle rates, he was the highest for USC's defense. So I think that did
you tried
matter.
Tackling with one hand.
I can't even try tackling with two. But yes, we
saw it. I mean, we talked about it. He was pulled a couple of times. It seemed like during that game where they were just simply like, it doesn't feel like it's really happening.
It's rough.
Tonight.
Yeah. What do you do with that?
And all of a sudden you lose Gentry. And then the other side of this, Arizona's going to be a coverage game for a lot of these linebackers, Max. And that's more Eric's strength than it is maybe the other two or three.
It's a great point. This Arizona offense is legit, and it's not even like, you're trying to love up and be optimistic. They have three receivers that are studs, and their best receiver, Jacob Cowing, is... I mean, he's one of the top receivers in the conference, and he's a slot receiver, so it would have been Eric Gentry's matchup. But, I mean, the Arizona defense is one of the worst in the Pac-12. Arizona offense, it's up there with the best. They got Dorian Singer and Tatero McMillan, two other receivers that are studs, so all those guys are explosive. Yep.
Yeah, I saw T-Mac 7-on-7 before when he was in high school. Just embarrassing kids. It was ridiculous. It was one of those guys who I was like, if USC can somehow get him, he'll be... I mean, he leads the FBS in yards receiving and touchdowns for a freshman. So
and they kind of go with
that they got him.
Yeah, no, I know. It was
first
weird.
5-star recruit ever.
Out of nowhere.
And I think they kind of go as Jaden DeLora goes, right? He's had good games and he's had bad games where he looks like he's pressing too much. So their offense kind of flows with him. They can score a ton of points when he's hot, but when he's kind of hiccuping a little bit and kind of trying to press, I think that's when they kind of struggle.
They also think they have an NFL left tackle too, first or second round type of guy. Jordan Morgan, their left tackle. So matchup for the edge rushers as well, getting pressure.
They have given up exactly 49 points in 3 of the last 4 games.
Yeah. The other side's a different story. And, to this offense, if Jordan Addison is out this week, it's definitely an opportunistic time to break some receiver in. I don't think we're at that point. I think all those guys can play, but it's good timing, as weird as that is to say.
Shaun, this is just a curious question. I know it's a different USC defense from last season, but if you've seen a quarterback like Jaden DeLora already, does that help you at all?
Yeah, a little bit. You're more prepared. You kind of have a game plan in order where you know how to work with it, who's running around. It seems like they didn't struggle too much with Arizona State's quarterback. So they have a game plan. They kind of know how it feels. I think Jaden Delore is a little bit more exceptional running the ball than Arizona State's quarterback. But I think it does help that you've seen it before. Yeah.
He was lighting USC up in that Washington State game last year, and then he got hurt.
Yeah,
and Jackson Dart came in and won that game. It was sort of the high point of USC's season last year with that game up at Washington State. The good news for USC, to come out of the bye, this isn't a part of the schedule that they can attack. They will be heavy favorites in the next 3 games going into UCLA. With that said, there is no room for error. We talk sometimes about parity, particularly in the Pac-12. It's not really there this year. I don't think a 2-loss team is going to like their standing in this conference. So as much as there's opportunities this week, and we talk about Arizona's defense and maybe some things that they've struggled at, there's just no room for error right now.
The nice thing about this team, though, under Lincoln Riley, is that they've proven that they can take care of business when they need to. Maybe it's not a full 60 minutes, but you're not worried about them going on the road and playing at Arizona or something like that. This is the team that does what they need to do when they need to do it.
Yeah, this is time of the year. No more hiccups. You got to play right now. The good teams are starting to kind of rise to the top right now, and that's what you got to be this time of year.
Jordan Moore, Shaun Cody, Max Browne, and Keely Eure to wrap things up. The over-under is presented by Pechanga Resort Casino, proud partner of USC Athletics. My questions to wrap this thing up, since we had a bye week, a chance to see the national landscape, watch some other games a little bit more. So the over-under, a half a team from the Pac-12 making the college football playoff this year.
Everyone looks at me. Okay, I'll take it. Over.
So you think a Pac-12 team's going to make the CFP this year?
Sure. I've been wrong every time.
We don't know. I mean, I don't think anyone writes this stuff down. I'm sure you just tell it.
I'm winning. I've actually been writing it down. I'm winning.
I'm going over too. I think the fact that we're this late into the season and we have 3 legitimate contenders for the playoff, I think that's a great sign. And then I also could see something where the SEC beats everyone to the point where they don't get 2. Maybe that frees up a slot. And I think
cannibalism. Like Pac-12?
A little bit, yeah. And
okay.
I also think the Pac-12 is better positioned than the ACC and the Big 12 in terms of strength of schedule. So if a 1-loss team matches up, Pac-12
definitely some guaranteed losses out there for the teams ahead, right? Ohio State has to play Michigan. Georgia has to play Tennessee. There's an SEC championship, which will be the winner of Georgia-Tennessee versus Alabama probably. So there's some sort of scheduled losses.
So we're saying then Oregon's going to get in then, because if it's another team, they all have 1 loss.
So does Oregon, big guy.
Excuse me. That is right. They did lose the first game.
So we're saying it would have to be a 1-loss.
A 1-loss Pac-12, yeah.
Which right now, as Keely said, or Max said, USC, UCLA, Oregon, all positioned in terms of 1-loss teams.
I don't really count the Oregon loss anymore. That was a long time ago. They were kind of figuring themselves out. I give Oregon a break on that one. They looked really good against UCLA.
Also, Clemson did not look that great either.
I know.
Those are their quarterback position.
Yeah.
So if that's the ACC representative.
Wait, did we get Sean's answer?
I don't think so.
That was my answer.
Do we care?
What was it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. You think the Pac-12 champion is going to make the college football playoff?
I do think so, yes. I'm going to go over then.
Did anyone stand out to you guys watching games nationally? Is there
Bo Nix. That was
you watched the Oregon UCLA game?
I watched the one game.
I even watched Cal UW, and I was like, let's just get this over with. I don't know why.
I took a mental break from football and recharged for the second half, guys.
We don't have time for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Trojans Live is a production of USC Sports Properties and Playfly Sports. Our executive producer is Drew DeHart. Producer is Rick Cutler. We have Art Webb back in the studio and production assistance by Gia Lares. You can follow us on YouTube, USC Athletics. Catch up on the show. We'll be right back here next Monday. And then on Saturday, it's USC and Arizona. For the crew, I'm Jordan Moore. Fight on, everyone.